I'm tired of just being ripped off by all these imposters. How do I enforce this? This is how you do it. You go through the court system. You file these lawsuits, and you know, it's great. People are so impressed with what, you can go after 100. If there's 100 sellers doing this at once, you can go after 100 at a time. It's just a matter of cost benefit, like if it's worth it to you.
Welcome to the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast. Are you ready to unlock the full potential and growth in your business? You've already crossed 7 figures in sales, but the challenge is knowing how to take your business to the next level. Join Josh Hadley, an 8-figure ecom business owner and investor, as he interviews highly successful business owners. Get ready, because you're going to learn specific actions you can take today to help your business reach its full potential and leave a lasting impact on the world.
Welcome to the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hadley, where I interview the top business leaders in e-commerce. Past guests include Kevin King, Aaron Cordovez, and Michael E. Gerber, author of The E-Myth. Today, I'm speaking with Paul Rafelson of the Rafelson Law Firm and Seller Basics, and we are going to be talking a lot about how you can protect your brand through the Amazon purge that is currently underway right now. This episode is brought to you by Ecom Breakthrough, where I specialize in investing in and scaling 7-figure companies to 8 figures and beyond. If you're an ambitious e-commerce entrepreneur looking for a partner who can help take your business to the next level, my team and I provide hands-on experience, strategic insights, and the resources needed to fuel your growth. So if you or someone you know is ready to scale or looking for an investment partner, reach out to me directly at josh@ecombreakthrough.com. That's ecom with 2 M's, and let's turn your dreams into reality. But today I am super excited to introduce you all to Paul Rafelson. Paul is an experienced attorney with nearly 20 years in complex tax, litigation, and M&A matters. Paul is also a trusted resource in the e-com world, regularly quoted in the press on matters involving Amazon and e-commerce, and was the most cited resource in the House Antitrust Committee's report on Amazon's business practices. So with that introduction, welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on. Really, really excited to be here. Really looking forward to our chat today.
Paul, I'm super excited to have you on. And for all of our listeners, I think we should all be, singing your praises and grateful to you. I know you played a huge role in the sales tax, ordeal that went down, 5 years ago now, it seems like. It seems like it was just yesterday.
It started, 2024? It started about 7 years ago. 7 years ago.
Yeah.
It changed my whole life, that whole incident. That's why I'm here. I would never have thought to go into private practice if it wasn't for that whole situation. It was fun.
Well, you saved millions of Amazon sellers from having to file their own sales taxes, complying with all the local counties and all that garbage.
And income tax and all that nonsense.
And income tax. Yeah. Push it to Amazon that can deal with it. So, Paul, number one, thank you. And we're all excited to have you on the show.
You're welcome. Only problem with that is I get a little bit typecasted now. People are like, oh, you do IP, you do this. I thought you were the tax guy. I'm like, this was like rooted constitutional law stuff. It had more to do, it's not like I'm out here filling forms on April 15th or whatever. So you don't even know what day the taxes are due. This was very, really just fundamental constitutional law. But I get so typecasted. I feel like, it's like this is my role, and it's taken me years to break out of it. But no, it was a lot of fun. I'm happy. I was happy to do it. It was really interesting stuff. I mean, it was unfortunate the way they treated the sellers. I thought that was disgusting what the states were doing and what Amazon was doing. But glad it's for the most part resolved nowadays.
I love that. So, Paul, with that being said, you've obviously played a big role too in the House's antitrust case. So why don't you tell me a little bit more there on that topic and kind of give me your predictions, if you can, of what you think shakes out over the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think not a lot. I mean, I think, unfortunately, I don't think much is happening with this case. It's, that's going on right now. I have mixed feelings about the way the FTC is handling this situation. At the time, I don't know how many years ago this was, 2020, 2019, 2020. I was working, we had the nonprofit Online Merchant Guild, which is still around, but not really doing very much. But we were actively taking on different cases, and we really wanted to um, have a say and have a voice in sort of e-commerce law and policy. So we were drafting documents, sort of capturing really the voice of the seller. It wasn't our voice; it was just us, sort of, summarizing different experiences sellers had, the sort of mistreatments that Amazon had happened, that had happened that maybe weren't as obvious as some of the ones that had been commonly referenced, like Amazon always stealing other people's products was commonly referenced throughout the hearings, and we just wanted to bring other insights to light. And I think we did a great job doing that, but it's just where it kind of went from there. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of hope with the cases that are currently running at the moment. I don't know if this is the path forward for this. It'll certainly be 5-10 years before anything comes of it, I think. And who knows? Who knows if there's a regime change, whether these cases will even continue. But it was fun to have our voice heard. It was fun to meet with the chair of the FTC, who was the chief counsel at the time, Lena Khan, and really be able to share the Amazon stories and represent the Amazon sellers, at least put our foot forward as for what's really going on. I still think to this day, Amazon sellers are missing this huge opportunity to build a lobby. I think a lot of our problems stem from the fact that we can't, I tried, and it was, and in my defense, I wasn't the one who was supposed to do that. I was supposed to do the actual lobbying part, like working with lobbyists and stuff like that. But we tried to raise the money to put a lobbying force in Congress that represents our interests. We just haven't done it. And I think we missed out on that. I think that's the biggest root of our woes as Amazon sellers. I think we would, you read on LinkedIn about these issues, people complaining every day. It's like, if we just had this lobby in force, I don't know how to, I sound like I'm being a dead horse, but that's just how the game is played. We need our own representative lobbying force in Congress. Some just sort of, solidarity among Amazon and e-commerce companies to represent small businesses, whether it's the issues are how Amazon treats us, whether the issues are, why is it still cheaper to ship from China than it is to ship across the country? Why are they getting advanced? These companies, Temu and Amazon, they're all trying to compete against us and kill more American businesses. Things like that we should be addressing in Congress. But it's, and it's like, what would that take? 30, 40, 50 grand a month for a nice, healthy lobbying effort with top lobbyists, knocking down the doors of Congress, speaking on our behalf. Doesn't seem like a lot of money in the scope of our market size, but it's been an absolute really difficult to get people to kind of align on that. We had a big meeting, I remember in 2021, maybe 2020. We had a big town hall whenever Clubhouse was popular. And the vast majority of influencers just didn't think it was a good idea to do this. And it's like, well, we're just not going to get anywhere. So I'm ranting a little bit, but it touches a nerve, because I really think we would just do so much better. All the issues we're going to talk about could be better handled if we had our own lobbying force in Congress.
I like that. I couldn't agree with you more. So yeah, Paul, maybe there's a chance for us to resurrect it. Maybe this will resonate with sellers, and it's time to, turn it on, because our audience is 7-figure plus Amazon sellers.
Right.
We all go in,
I just want to do it. I just want the fun. I don't want to die out of it. I'm happy to do my part. But the lobbyists, I got to pay. You got to pay these high-powered lobbyists, but we should have them. I think it's time to change the game. That's how you level the playing field between us and Amazon. The only thing Amazon's afraid of is the government.
Yep. All right. So Paul, on that note, let's dive into those issues that figuratively would be easier or more manageable, possibly, if we had some lobbyists behind us. But we talked about briefly before we hit the record button that there is a true purge going on at Amazon. Tell me what that is.
Yeah, so I call it is the purge. It is, and this comes from the seller basic side, which is separate from my law firm. We have a whole account health program called Seller Basics, and it's like you pay like whatever $100 a month or whatever, and if anything happens to your Amazon account, we do the Amazon process, and that's so we have a whole account health team that's just running through cases all day, and especially among resellers, it just seems there is a purge among resellers. I'm seeing many resellers exit the business, like, and these are people that I've known for years in wholesale arbitrage. They're some of the top people. They're scaling back. They're exiting. They don't know. One minute they're free to sell, millions of dollars of this brand of sneaker a year, and then all of a sudden Amazon says, nope, can't do that. Then the fees go up. Then, oh, we don't like your invoice. Sorry. We've accepted that invoice for 10 years, but now we need you to trace. We'll no longer accept a receipt from Walmart. We need you to trace the products to their original source, direct to the manufacturer. If you can't do that, we'll shut your account down. You'll never get it back. I mean, there is a purge. There's something going on in Amazon. I don't know if it's a combination of factors that Amazon's trying to just clean up their sourcing and just have more direct sourcing. I don't know if it's because there's a stolen goods problem now. It's not just about authenticity. Last summer, there was a big to-do over a major supplier that a lot of sellers were working with out in California. Got raided by the California Highway Patrol. It turns out stolen goods. So tons of sellers were getting hit with these stolen goods. Even if their goods weren't stolen, just by virtue of using an invoice from this company that had stolen goods on their premises, Amazon shut them all down. Not easy to come back from. But there's something going on at Amazon where they are just, really purging the wholesalers and the retailers. I think with a private label, brand owners, the purge is more in the form of fee erosion, right? Just constant margin erosion, right? Just upping the fees, while at the same time trying to create a Temu marketplace that's, where they can bring in the stuff from China even cheaper. Just making it, really trying to squeeze. It's almost like from a private label perspective, Amazon views the seller as like the middleman, right? I don't think there's anything new, right? And the middleman, that's extra cost. So if you can cut the middleman out, you can bring costs down, and voila, prices are lower. And Amazon is not unlike Walmart. Their priority is their customer, not the seller. Right? Their priority is the customer's perception that prices are low, right? People are Prime members because they believe they're getting access to great deals, good products at a low price. And Amazon, I think that's their priority is going to be always to the Prime membership. They have to make sure Prime membership feels valuable to the consumer, because if they lose that, that's a big problem. So they're just squeezing sellers more and more. And there's definitely a double standard. Sellers in China definitely get away with more than sellers in the United States. It's just a fact. They just get away with it more. How? I don't fully know, but I know what they do. I don't know how they're getting away with it, per se. I mean, we can all speculate on how that's happening, but it's happening.
Yep. So on that note, Paul, there's one thing that really resonated with me when you spoke at $1 Billion Seller Summit in Hawaii earlier this year. And you talked about, kind of, going at these overseas sellers that have been counterfeiting, knocking off IP for years, and really us not having a whole lot of defense around that. Would you mind maybe diving a little bit deeper into those strategies, and how can private label brand owners really protect themselves from these, overseas sellers, especially when there is so much margin erosion happening? You've got, competitors that are just driving down prices in addition to fees going up.
Yeah. So it is something that's been a problem for years, and they invest money in intellectual property. They have a trademark, they have a copyright, they have a patent, maybe a design patent, maybe a utility patent. Copyright's fairly cheap, trademarks fairly standard, patents can be very expensive to obtain. But then it's like, okay, well, now you have this thing, but what do you do to enforce it? And so maybe you have this cool patented product, maybe you have these cool copyrighted designs that you've integrated into your product, and somebody's ripping you off. What do you do about it? With copyright, you can try to report it through brand registry. It's almost impossible to get them to do anything. Even if they do something, there's this sort of federal law called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act that allows the person to file what's called a counter notice, and next thing you know, they're back up online unless you file a lawsuit. So I think people are averse to filing lawsuits, but what we've seen is, there's opportunity there. Working with different litigators, we have found that when you're dealing with an infringer overseas in China, when you're dealing with, you may think, how do I sue them? They're in China. Well, we can actually sue them here in the United States in federal courts, right? We can bring a case in federal court here in the United States. And what we can do is basically file the case sort of in secret, we call it under seal, and basically get a court to order Amazon to freeze any money associated with those particular sellers. And then from there, it's still a court case that has to go on, but in some cases they'll forfeit, in some cases they'll be a negotiation, sometimes there'll be a full-on court case. But you're freezing the funds and you're getting the court to order the listings down. So it's a way to police your listings through the courts to get Amazon to do what Amazon won't otherwise do. Because Amazon will always listen to a court. That's the key, right? If you have a court order, Amazon's just going to do whatever the court order says in most cases, right? So this is a way for people who have, you have IP, you have well-established IP, you have IP, you have valuable IP, and you're like, I'm tired of just being ripped off by all these imposters. How do I enforce this? This is how you do it. You go through the court system, you file these lawsuits, and it's great. People are so impressed with what, you can go after 100, if there's 100 sellers doing this at once, you can go after 100 at a time. It's just a matter of cost benefit, like if it's worth it to you, right? But I don't think a lot of sellers know that. There's other ways Amazon tries to offer IP enforcement, but it's just weak. The systems are not strong, and they're inconsistent. So this is a way to get consistency of outcome. If you have a good case, you're probably going to get a court order. I just can't guarantee what your outcome's going to be, but you're going to get that court order. You're going to get the court to order Amazon to take down those listings. You're going to be able to freeze funds and then, use that as a basis to continue litigation. The benefit of freezing funds is now you're in a dispute with the seller in China. Their money is being held by Amazon. You get a little spreadsheet saying how much money is being held by each seller that you've sued. And then that starts the negotiation and or court case. But, they're in a tough spot because their money is locked down until this case gets resolved in most cases. So they're really, really fun cases to bring. I like working these cases a lot. And I think more and more sellers, especially 7 and 8 figure sellers who are just like, I'm tired of seeing my margins, being eaten away by imposters. This is a great way to strike back and really take ownership of your IP and no longer be beholden to Amazon's inconsistent systems that seem to be not so great for the domestic U.S. seller.
Yeah. So, Paul, we actually had somebody on the podcast. It was Hilton Hart from Edison IP. And we went into the weeds of this exact strategy that you're talking about. And in fact, Hilton acquired a brand, and because he saw so much IP infringement and trademark and copyright issues, where he opened up one of these court cases, right? Sued hundreds of sellers all at the same time, froze their assets in the US, basically, got default judgments to where, these overseas sellers aren't going to show up in court. So you basically get their money, or maybe not. But his case was like most of them didn't show up in court. He got a default judgment. Yeah. He basically paid for the business just from that lawsuit.
Default judgments. No, that's great.
Like that's great. You've got some more to add to this, and that was going to be my question: is like, how does this work, and who do you go to? Like, do you yourself create these cases, Paul, or
we work with litigators depending on the jurisdiction you're in. We'll figure out a plan. We work with litigators. We're lawyers. Obviously, we may file. But I like to work with. I'm not a courtroom lawyer. That's not my jam. So that's not. Never mind. I was going to drop the Philly word. My mind is, it's 8 o'clock it's late where I am, so I apologize. It's on my John. Excuse me. I was trying to figure out my Philly lingo, for a second where I grew up. I don't love being in court. Like, that's not my jam. I like relying on litigators who love to be in court. Good for them. But no, it is something we facilitate. We work these cases all the time. They're a lot of fun. But sometimes, if you hit it's like if you go for the vein and you get a deep one, you get a real, gusher of a vein, right? There's a lot of money. If you freeze millions of dollars of a seller in China, they're going to lawyer up. So, and that happens sometimes, right? So sometimes you do find yourself actually going through litigation, trying to defend the case, and they'll make arguments that, this doesn't, they'll say the money doesn't relate to the product. So they'll try to get out under a Grupo Mexicano. It's an old Supreme Court case that could potentially limit how much you can freeze. They try to get really thready. So, I mean, sometimes you really do have to litigate. Sometimes you have to go into appeals, with these cases, depending on the default judgments are nice. But if the dollars are big, you tend to see, and that's how any court case is, right? That's how we sort of measure any litigation. We look at, when I have clients call me up and they give me these scenarios, just say like, got in this dispute with my 3PL and as a result, I lost 15 grand. Can we sue them? And the answer is yes, you can sue them. Do you want to sue them for 15 grand? Like, do you want to? Because the amount of money you're going to spend in litigation costs, right, is going to probably exceed 15 grand fairly quickly before you even get into court. So it sort of, again, becomes sort of cost benefit analysis. But if you freeze big dollars, you will see lawyers show up and you will have to defend this case for, we do defend the case. Like we have to, or prosecute the case, I should say. We have to do that. So it's not always as easy as just getting a bunch of default judgments. It just depends. But, lawyers are happy to do it. If the dollars are there, the case is strong, we're happy to go after it and take on the fight. We like those cases. So I'd rather, I think from the lawyer's perspective, they'd rather have a bigger pot because that works out to fight over than a small pot not to fight over. No, I mean, it's not always as easy as a default judgment, but, and if you have 100 sellers, maybe, 80 of them will be default judgment, small ball. And then you'll have like 10 or 15 that'll be big, or, sometimes you'll have 10 or 15 that are really just one seller with multiple accounts. So there's all sorts of crazy stuff you see when you're doing this stuff with Amazon. And it's not just Amazon. Like you can sue Alibaba to try to stop at the source. You're probably not going to get any money from Alibaba because they're going to say your money's in China. You cannot have jurisdiction over, so there's like different avenues, but you can certainly use the court order process too, to try to stop the different channels of wherever this is coming from.
Yeah. Love that. Paul, that's a rabbit hole in and of itself, but I think you see a lot of other issues that sellers are facing. What are some of the other issues that you see sellers facing right now that, can help protect their brand, their assets, and how do they play smart to stay ahead of the game for the next 5 years?
Oh, that's a great question. So obviously, having your intellectual property in order is key. One of my pet peeves with brands, especially as somebody who does a lot of M&A, who helps their clients exit, right? It's one of our favorite things to do, is we help our clients. We're not brokers, we're lawyers, right? You work with brokers, you work with people like you who help companies grow. I don't know anything about how to help companies grow. That's not my jam, my John. What we do is when you're ready to sell, help you go through that transaction process, make sure the terms and conditions are safe. When you sell a business, one of the things you have to promise is, and you have to make a series of promises. You probably know this as representations and warranties, but you've got to make promises about the condition of your business. One of the most fundamental promises you're probably going to make is about your ownership of assets. I can't tell you how many times I see this. This drives me crazy. You go out, especially Amazon sellers are guilty of this mistake so many times. They went out, they created a brand registry. Okay, that was product 1, right? Then there's product 2, product 3, product 4, product 5, product 6, whatever it is. All these different offshoots, variations, different names, for those, and they never went back and registered those brands. They never registered those trademarks. And then one day they go to sell their business, and it's like, do you own that? So think about it in real world terms. Think about cereal, right? You've got Kellogg's, right? The sort of the umbrella. You've got Cocoa Krispies. You've got Rice Krispies. You've got Corn Apple Jacks. I know all the Kellogg's. I know a lot about cereal apparently. Frosted Flakes, right? Each one of those products is a brand, right? So if you have different variations, you're giving them cool little names or different products that you're giving, but you only went and registered your trademark for that one brand, it creates issues. So do IP checkups. Like, just go get your IP checked up. Go register your copyrights. If you're hiring people on Fiverr, for the love of Pete, get the assignment of rights, get the document saying this is yours, right? They are the author, but you own it, right? Make sure you know where they're getting their stuff from. If they're creating content for you, check in with them. It's like, where did you get that from? Did you get that picture from Shutterstock? If so, do you have a license for that? Things like little things like that, people mess up, and it can just be such a pain especially when you're trying to exit. You're in the middle of trying to exit, and it's like this. They start raising questions about stuff like that. So, as you get to be a 7 and 8 figure seller, it's definitely time to deploy some legal hygiene. I think it's just so important. Yeah, it costs a bit of money, but it's not a lot of money, and it's really, really important. And it can save you a ton, and it can increase your valuation at the end of the day. So there's something. Compliance with laws. This is a big one with Amazon. Amazon is super paranoid. I don't know if you saw, Consumer Product Safety Commission is finally doing what we always said they should do, which is they're holding Amazon responsible for dangerous products. And Amazon's taking that serious. Like, over time, right? When we first started out with Amazon, going all the way back to when I was an Amazon seller, like 2003, 2004, it was a marketplace, right? It was clearly a marketplace. And Amazon kind of leaned on that "we're just a marketplace" excuse to get out of accountability for what they were doing, or for what was happening on their platform, I should say. You could pretty much sell or do anything. They didn't care in the early days then. But now the whole court view of Amazon, the whole legal view of Amazon has shifted in many areas, not just the consumer product safety, but the courts have seen this, where they're saying, like with sales tax, this Amazon, this is really your store. So you're kind of responsible now for what happens to the customer, right? If the customer gets hurt, injured, using a product, I don't care if it was so-and-so seller, right? That's why we all have to show our insurance now. But it's getting worse and worse. Amazon is feeling more and more accountable for the content on their platform, for the safety of the products on their platform. So compliance is at an all-time high. Compliance inquiries, any suspicion of dangerous product, Amazon is shutting you down, and they're looking for compliance documentations. They're looking for safety testing. So, it's just a lot more complex to be on Amazon today than it ever was. And people just need to be aware of that. If you have a product that is, a little risky, you may want to make sure you understand your compliance obligations. I can't tell you how many clients come to me and they don't even know. This is not a pesticide. Well, according to what you wrote, it is a pesticide. According to this, it is it's just, people really don't understand what their products are. This is not making disease claims. It literally says cures this disease on the back of your product. It is making disease claims. So understanding your compliance obligations, understanding your industry, it's still amazing to me that people make millions and millions of dollars selling products that are regulated, and they don't actually know the regulations that they're subject to. That's a little scary. Learn your industry, learn your regulations. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a really tough situation.
Yeah, I think Amazon, earlier this year, they did that crackdown on supplements and wanting the testing, right? And now it looks like it's going to be the same thing for, safety product testing, CSPC, having those actually be tested and uploaded to products. Like, where else do you see the puck going with Amazon and the different things that they're going to require of sellers moving forward?
That's the hard part, is I just think it's going to get more. I think I worry about this purge, right? Like, that, is it going to get to the point where Amazon's just going to put their foot down and say, you know what, we're just going to, I don't know. They have to keep prices low, so they need sellers in China. I don't know. they're going to have to take more responsibility, and there may be a purge of just saying, like, look, you need to know your stuff, and maybe they're going to start choosing which sellers can sell on a platform even more. I don't know. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's like at some point the pressure just builds, and um, I mean, it does feel like they're trying to just the fees alone, right? What I'm hearing about with the fees and the costs of what it costs. I mean, people are more than ever wanting to get out of Amazon, move to TikTok, move to Shopify. Like, you know, um, is Amazon trying to streamline the catalog? I don't know. Are they just tired of it? Is it too much? I don't think they can keep up with the workload. Um, so that's what kind of concerns me. And but we see it. I mean, like I said, we have the seller basis, we have the account health side of our business, and all day, every day, people are calling us up, setting up cases and having issues because their products are suspended because there's these compliancy things that they didn't know about, and now they're finding out, and Amazon's like, too bad, so sad. So I don't know. What I would do is, but all the more reason, in my opinion, to say, like, if you're in an industry, like, you don't understand your compliance obligations, get to know them. Like, be on the top of your game. Be a prime example of, like, the good side of it. Don't be just like the one that's skirting by. Like, if you're doing 7-8 figures, like, it's time to get up. It's time to get in the game. Really understand what you're doing. But the days of tricks and are over. Like, if you're playing games, it's just like you get one shot these days, right? Like, it's very hard to come back from Amazon now in the suspension space when you've genuinely, like, tried to cheat the system. Like, before, you could be like, oh, I didn't know search, find, buy was a problem. Nobody told me. I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again. Like, now there's just no forgiveness, right? So, like, if God forbid you do something intentional, right, that, like, they perceive as intentional, like, you intentionally, or even not intentional in the sense that maybe you didn't know it was a bad thing, but it was a bad thing, right? There's just no coming back. Amazon they're not in the second chances move right now. I think I've been saying that all this. Probably the theme of this podcast for me is, like, there's just the second chance train has just been left leaving the station at Amazon.
So with that being said, then, like, Paul, what issues do you see sellers coming up against? Like, Amazon seems to go through different waves of suspensions and account bans and stuff on different things. Search, find, buy was a big push. Review manipulation, I think, is always a push with the FTC up Amazon.
Yeah.
Trying to figure that out. So what else are you seeing people getting suspended for, and what's the course of action to come back?
So, like I said, lack of documentation, things like that. Again, compliancy stuff. You can come back from that usually if you have the compliancy documentation. That's fairly easy to fix. I'll tell you something I'm seeing, that there's sort of this game going on in the reseller world. It's kind of cute. We call it, it's sort of like creative bundling. I don't know if you know about this, but it's like, let's say I want to sell, I don't know, give me a product. Let's say I want to sell, 5 bags of Doritos. Okay. But I don't want to sell them on the Doritos listing. I want my own private listing. So what a lot of sellers were being taught and coached about years ago was, go file a trademark and create a trademark and call it, like, Paul's Bundles or Paul's Curations. Okay. And then you brand register that, right, as like a curation box company, right? And then what you do is you create a listing on Amazon, not for Doritos, but Paul's Curations. Okay. And then you sell your Doritos, 5 packs, whatever, bundles, right? Well, this is, like, massive. Like, you can go on Amazon and see people doing this everywhere. And Amazon is cracking down. Like, Amazon is cracking down on this massively, right? Like, I've heard from insiders at Amazon that this is a priority issue. Meanwhile, there are sellers that are making tons and tons of money. There are 9-figure, 8-figure sellers. I don't know, maybe 9. I don't think there's 9-figure, 8-figure sellers that are doing this. Okay. But Amazon is coming down, and those right now, it's sort of slow. It's a trickle. We're seeing little cases, but people aren't coming back from it. Like Amazon's just, again, no forgiveness here. Like they feel like you were, arguably there's a legal argument that this is sort of like, call it reverse passing off because you're trying to pass off somebody else's product as your branded product. Amazon's just having none of it. They're just saying, like, unless you have a letter of authorization from like Doritos saying you can do this, we're not interested. Like we're not just suspending your listing, we're shutting you down. So it's, and that's an example of something where, like, and I know it's a reseller example, but it's kind of interesting because these resellers are creating trademarks. And it's interesting because it's like everybody's doing it, and it's like you'd almost think it is allowed because the level at which this is happening on Amazon today is insane. But I've heard it from Amazon executives that they're done with it. Like they want to crack down on this, and so those who do get caught with it are seeing their accounts permanently suspended, and there's no coming back. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
Invoices are huge right now. Sourcing is massive. Amazon wants to know where everything's coming from, especially if you're a reseller. Like I said, on the third part, on the private label side, it's compliance is always the thing. Compliance, safety, making sure that your bullets and your what's on your listings, are proper, aren't overstating, not violating any laws with what you're saying. You're not saying, except curative claims, things like that. Thankfully, I have a whole team who deals with the account health stuff and the basics. I don't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. Thank God. Thank God for my team who does that because they're very good at what they do. I would drill a hole in my head if I had to do account health stuff all day long. I would lose my mind. It takes a certain strong person, and I admire that strong. But in my case, our leader is Joy, and think every day that she's doing what she does because she's so good at what she does, and she has the patience of a saint to deal with it. Because I would lose my mind if I had to do stuff all day.
Yeah, I hear you. Paul, anything else you think that our sellers need to know about to protect their brand, protect their assets on Amazon right now?
I think it's key to just, again, understand your IP. If you're dealing with infringers, consider there are possible structures that might be more advantageous to you. And then, I would say it's just, really schedule a checkup, do the legal hygiene, make sure your business is in order from a legal perspective, because that stuff matters. There's still a market. People are still selling their businesses. They're not aggregators anymore. There are very few left. But there's still a market. People can still sell their businesses. It's not the craziness of 2021, but there is a healthy market out there. And so you should be thinking about valuing, how to build value and how you might want to exit one day. So, I think IP is everything, right? Like when we go through an M&A deal with an Amazon seller, an e-commerce company, like 90% of the deal is going to be valued in the intellectual property, mainly, especially the trademark. So take care of that IP. I think that's the most important thing. Keep in mind that Proposition 65, that California warning rule, that's still alive and well. And it's actually Amazon sellers are more at risk from that than they ever were. So if you're not familiar with California's Proposition 65, I think we have a video on our website somewhere that we did a long time ago, but certainly read up on it. You're not exempt. The trick with Prop 65, the thing you have to understand, most important thing you have to understand is that just because you're under 10 employees does not mean you are exempt from Prop 65, because it's not actually you who's getting hit. It's Amazon, and then Amazon is coming down on you through the indemnity clause in your contract with Amazon. So what's basically happening is people are hitting Amazon with these Prop 65 cases, and Amazon's lawyers will then reach out to you and say, I need you to take care of this, settle this Prop 65 case on our behalf, or else we're going to freeze your 30, 40 grand, your money until you do. And if we don't, then we'll use the money to pay for our defense or settle it ourselves. So it's a real thing. So keep in mind the Prop 65 stuff, and just, keep your ear to the ground, keep your compliance in order, and pray and pray, and maybe look to expand to different channels. Cause I don't know, with Amazon, it's been a rough year for a lot of people. A lot of people I've known since the beginning, since 2017, when I started this private practice, people who were big sellers, people who were in the game for a long time are just kind of ready to throw in the towel. This is probably darkest year I've seen in the Amazon space, and that's why we call it the purge, because it feels like a lot of people are just they've had enough, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, Paul, I think that is, good foresight and good warning to people. I remember distinctly telling my friend back in, this is 2017, 2018, saying, hey, I think that this, like, being able to create some fictitious UPC code or buying UPC codes off the internet somewhere and just putting and coming up with just exactly what you were doing. Like, people were teaching at the time, like, go take this product that's doing well, go bundle it with this product, and you'll make millions of dollars, right? Just create some stupid UPC code. And I'm like, there's no way that this lasts for a long period of time. Like, eventually Amazon is going to, and this is my prediction, Amazon becomes just as difficult as it is to get into big retail stores, right? Imagine all the checks and balances that you have to go through to get your product onto the store shelf of Walmart or Target, right? They're going to make sure your compliance documents are intact because they know their butt's on the line. And so I think that ultimately Amazon's going to get to that point. Now, I think Amazon is always going to want innovation. So Amazon's always going to kind of give preference or a lot of love to brand new products or ideas. But I think that getting those products on, right, it may require that child product safety certificate before you can even list the item on Amazon, right? And right now it's kind of like, well, you can get it up on Amazon. Then if you start generating sales, then you could then spend the cost to go get the certificate. I think that over the next 5 to 10 years, the script gets flipped and it's like, before you can even list this product, we want the safety product certificate. We want Prop 65. We want everything documented. What are your thoughts on that, Paul?
I think that's kind of, I think I was probably beating around the bush, but I think you said it for me. I think I was kind of like, I'm kind of afraid to say that, but it's actually, I think 100%. There's something like that is happening for sure. Like it has to. Like they're tired of. They're just not putting up with any of it anymore in terms of like people trying to cut corners, except for China. The problem is China. I can't reconcile the China side.
Yeah,
China, it seems like they let China cut corners like all day long. Yeah, and so they're still willing to cover for them. But I mean, as far as the Americans, and the Brit, and the Western countries, it seems like they're like that's the double standard. I don't understand. But yeah, I think you're 100% right on that. I think that, will they limit who's in their store? I mean, I had this prediction with the antitrust thing that Amazon might actually just call themselves a store and try to use that as a defense for this antitrust stuff, because in a way that has been their line of defense. If you read their responses to a lot of the accusational, a lot of the accusations with the antitrust subcommittee and saying, Amazon, you compete against sellers. Well, doesn't Costco compete against its suppliers when it sells Kirkland? Right? Are you familiar? You're a Costco guy, right?
Yep.
Or you've been to Costco, right? Yeah, right. Like, doesn't Costco use data regarding what Duracell sells when they're looking at their what batteries to sell? I mean, all retail does this. Doesn't Costco create private labels based on what top selling products? This is basic store brand marketing, which is totally allowed. And this is sort of what they're telling the antitrust committee. It's like, this is all stuff that normal, if you call Amazon a marketplace, a lot of what the FTC says sounds pretty salacious. But if you look at Amazon as a retail store, like any other retail store, maybe they're a consignment-based retailer. I mean, that's really what it is. It's FBA in a way. It's just sort of consigned inventory. If you look at them from that perspective, it's like, well, they're not unlike any other store, and so why should they be treated any different? And if it's not considered competing against sellers when Costco sells Kirkland brand, fabric softener in a blue bottle that sits right next to the Snuggle, Snuggle, is that what it's called? The Snuggle bottle, if that's not a violation of anti-competition laws, then why should it be when Amazon does that? So you see that kind of argument. Like the Temu thing is interesting. We'll see how that plays out, but it's not a good look. A lot of sellers aren't happy about the Temu thing. Amazon's version of Temu, the fact that Amazon's sort of creating a Temu type competitor where they're going to be basically facilitating shipments from sales direct from China, you taking advantage of the packet mail system that, I don't know. I think that's ticking off a lot of people.
If there is one thing that needs to be repealed, it's that it's stupid, loophole
we could have
that
done,
allows
right.
to ship in stuff below $800 and not have to pay the tariffs. Like that is, and how we're also subsidizing the U.S. Postal Service is subsidizing all of that. Why is that
because
cheaper?
China is still considered a developing country under the old system. This is what we need our lobbyists for. This is the first thing I would want to tackle. If I had lobbyists set up in Congress, we would be all over. Lobbyists and PR. $50,000 a month across top sellers and hire just top lobbyists and nice PR firm. Shouldn't be hard. I mean, I don't think anybody in America is really a fan. If they understood it, is really a fan of this. It just nobody really knows. Congress is so asleep and obviously uninterested in issues like this right now. But we got to make them aware. It's our job. We got to spin it. It's costing American businesses and jobs. So we'll see. But
I agree. Well, Paul, with that being said, despite this year being somewhat of a purge, right, and maybe a dark year for a lot of Amazon-based sellers, here's what I would say in terms of my words of encouragement, which will lead into our 3 action items. I'd love to give the audience 3 action items to be able to walk away from every podcast. So action item number 1 is look at these, I guess, all the regulations, the increase in fees, the hardness that is becoming Amazon as a good thing, and to shift your mindset to say, okay, this is hard, but hard is good, because guess what? If it means I have to go through this, that means my competitors are going to have to go through this as well. And here's what we do know. Most people are lazy. Most people, when the going gets tough, they want out. And Paul, you talked about this. You've seen more people than ever, even big sellers, being like, I'm out. I don't want to deal with this anymore. So for those that are willing to lean in, right, maybe there's going to be reduced competition down the road for you, right? Maybe there are brighter days ahead, but lean into the hardness. No matter what life throws your way, those hard things can produce really good fruit down the road. Action item number 2 is going to be, if our prediction comes true, Paul, where in the next 5 to 10 years, before you can even create a listing on Amazon, you need to upload your Prop 65 certificate. You make sure that you check the box that says, like, yes, this has the sticker. You need to have your child product safety certificate already attached before you upload the product. You also need to have, if you're doing supplements, the product testing report before you can even publish it, right? If that's where we're going, then it is going to be 10 times better for you to start getting your ducks in a row right now. So make sure that you're already ahead of that game, because I think that's where a lot of people have gotten, they're in the crosshairs right now, and listings have been taken down because, they were never doing product testing on their supplements. And then all the testing labs got backed up, and they couldn't even get a test done in time before Amazon's deadline. So then their listing goes down. It's like, well, no duh. Like you should have been testing this stuff in advance. So if you have your ducks in a row, there's going to be no need to fear. So if you're prepared, you shall not fear. It's one of my favorite sayings. All right. Action item number 3 is this. We talked about being prepared from compliance statements, but be prepared on your intellectual property, from trademarks to copyrights to patents, both utility and design patents. Protect yourself. And that was the story you shared at $1 Billion Seller Summit, which I loved, is, guys, there are resources and ways that you can fight these knockoffs, right? If people are copying your design, or if people are copying your product, there are ways for you to protect yourself. Amazon's Apex program, I've heard, is pretty good with utility patents, but outside of that, you may have to use Paul's strategy to, file a copyright lawsuit against 100 different sellers. And the advantage is that you could freeze their assets and actually do something about it. Those sellers just can't ignore the legal notice. Like, you can actually freeze their funds and you can get their attention. So my encouragement to you and to all of our sellers is this: if you let the overseas sellers continue to manipulate, undercut you, hijack you, create counterfeits, create derivatives off of your products, and if you don't do anything about it, guess what they're going to do? They're going to keep doing it. But if we all together, and we do this ourselves, if you're willing to go sue somebody, you send a very strong message to them and they're going to go somewhere else. Well, if all of us continue to sue everybody, guess what happens? Their culture has to change to stop copying everybody else. So, but that only happens when the masses actually commit, which goes back to the whole lobbying efforts, Paul. So we're preaching to the choir here.
It's great advice. Great advice. And if anyone ever has any questions about suing, shoot me a note. Let's talk. I mean, it's so important. The culture does have to change. It really does. And I think that's such they're not very, in China, they're not very apologetic about this stuff and not very empathetic when caught. So, I agree with you. The culture does have to change there too. And we've got to send that message pretty clearly. We're not doing a good enough job here. It is 10 times harder to be an American business, it seems, than it is to be a business in China. That's wrong. Like, that's what we need to tell our Congress. Congress needs to understand that. That's got to change too. We've got to change the culture here too. Remember, and get Congress fighting for American businesses, not giving overseas businesses advantages because they don't have to comply with the same rules we have to comply with, despite selling in our markets. So,
agreed. All right, Paul, time for my favorite time of the podcast, where I ask every guest the following 3 questions. Number 1, what's been the most influential book that you've read and why?
Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell. Just the cause and effect relationships. I mean, there's so much about that book that just blew my mind when I first read it. And I never forget how I felt reading that book. It was just, it was mind blowing, and also a little bit relatable with the hockey team, because I was the youngest in high school. I was always the youngest. I was 17 when I started college. I was a little young, not crazy young, but I was just always young, and I was really good at sports. And I kind of really related to that chapter about the hockey players and age and month of birth relates to that skill set. But I just love the book. It just was the first book to teach me to think differently.
Excellent recommendation. Question number 2, what's your favorite AI tool that you would recommend other people use?
So interestingly, I'm due for recommendations. I'm still just ChatGPT. I have mixed bag. I mean, I feel like everything out there is running on ChatGPT, even if they say it's like this, I've tried every legal tool. They're not great. I'm still ChatGPT, I think. Although, I mean, Gemini's getting there. But I'm still for GPT 4.0, whatever that's called, still my jam. But, it's not there yet. Like, it's AI is fascinating. It's super cool. But for lawyers, it is not even close to there yet. It's got a ways to go. I still feel like it's always, it's almost like you're paying per word. It costs them per word, so they're trying to shorten every. You'll tell it to write something, or can you proofread this and give it back to me, and it'll shorten it just so it doesn't have to rewrite what you just gave it to. Like, it's something's off. But I'm still, I guess, GPT. I don't know. Any recommendations?
Not legal wise, but I'm a big fan of creating custom GPTs. Right. So if you want,
how do you do
Paul's knowledge, download every transcript of Paul speaking, YouTube video that you can find of Paul, download that, upload it as a PDF into create a custom GPT in ChatGPT. And then you could pick Paul's brain without having to jump on a call with Paul. So that's my favorite.
How do you do that? Like, my friend did that for me. He created it, but he wanted, he was part of a business. So I had to pay the issue was I was paying $100 a month for my brain or something like that. But the problem was that he could see everything that, I couldn't put it on my website because he could see everything that people were typing. I'm like, that's a legal confidentiality problem. I could realize that they can see what, when you buy the bot from the service. It's like they can see everything that everyone's saying. I need to own the bot. I can't have clients typing in questions about legal questions and then having to go to a third party. That just, I didn't know. But how do you do that? Like, is there a software for that? Or is it I know you can create your GPT, but how do you create the little bot?
Yeah. So Perry Belcher would be the guy. I'm not going to act like I know. I would recommend go follow Perry Belcher. He's got wicked smart stuff on that right now. Last question. Who is somebody that you admire or respect the most in the e-commerce space that other people should be following, and why?
So obviously there's obvious, like Kevin is amazing, right? I think that goes without saying, the way he brings people together. But somebody I was thinking about just, who probably deserves a shout out, and I can never be able to pronounce his name, is the gentleman who created Marketplace Pulse. I absolutely love that website. It is probably a website, if you've never been to it, it is one of the most fascinating websites. It is just all data about Amazon. Like, if you want to know how many FBA sellers are in a particular state, like he just has all this data. And it's fascinating. And I like when he's featured in articles, like when people feature him. I'm just not going to try to butcher his name, but the founder of Marketplace Pulse, I feel like he needs a shout out. I feel like he's just, it's one of the coolest websites out there if you've never been. And if you're in the Amazon space particularly. Is it the coolest website out there? No, it's not the coolest website. It's the coolest website in the Amazon e-commerce space. One of the cooler websites, because it's fascinating data. And really easy to access. So I'd like to give a shout out to Marketplace Pulse.
Love that, Paul. Paul, this has been a great episode. If people want to learn more, they want to follow you, where could they do so?
Okay. Follow me. I think this Seller Basics is on Instagram or Facebook. But I'm easy to reach. I'm Paul at ecom.law. It's just Paul at ecom.law. And if you want to learn more about, you can always just email me and it'll go to me and I'll respond. Seller Basics, if you want to learn more about Seller Basics, just go to sellerbasics.com and check out what they're doing over there. It's pretty cool stuff. And, I love it because it's $100 a month. Like, it's not thousands and thousands of dollars. It's pretty cool. I think it's a neat concept and a better way to handle account health. What I love about Seller Basics too, I'll say one last thing. I'm not trying to plug it, but is I love it because it's built to be aligned with the client's interest, the member's interest, right? Like, we don't want you, like if you run a normal suspension service and that's all you do and you're making thousands of dollars, you're suspended, you have to pretend like you're suspended. With Seller Basics, we don't want you to be suspended because that means we have to do the work. It's like designed to be like insurance. So it's nice to be on the same side. It's nice to be like aligned with the client in that respect and have a system that's designed to be that way, that we want you to prosper and not be suspended, but it's better for us too. So, and it's $100 a month. So it's like, after you tax that, like $2 a day. So check out sellerbasics.com if you want to learn more about our account health stuff, and follow ecom.law if you haven't, or just go to the website ecom.law, which will be changing soon, to learn more about what we do on the Amazon legal side, e-commerce legal side. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming on the show, Paul.
You bet. Have a great one. Take care.
Thank you for listening. Visit ecombreakthrough.com for more information. If you've enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can show your appreciation is by clicking the subscribe button and quickly leaving a review. See you again next time.